Hello and welcome to Bits and Atoms, the Grisham Robotics Founder Series. I'm your host, Elias Can, and today I've got Max Olivson, co-founder and CEO of SWEN, joining me. To get started, Max, would you mind sharing a quick intro about you and SWEN?
Sure. My name is Max. I've lived for the past 10 years across UK, Europe, and the UAE. Been building before SWEN and as well alongside SWEN. So I have had experience in the automotive industry in the UAE. I had experience in no-code tools back in the CIS and quite a extensive experience with fintech in terms of cashless tipping solution in Europe. So a few years ago, I've set on a new journey for myself, which is fixing something more impactful than just something that looks like a business, which is the data problem in the carbon footprint industry. Because what I've seen and recollected over the years of traveling heavy, etc., is that at the end of the day, our impact is not about actually just canceling it out, because that's impossible. That would just stop the business and stop the economics working. But it's more about actually understanding it and making sense of it. So with this in mind, I've set on a journey to tackle the issue of broken carbon data, and not just on the business to business side, which is where normally a lot is analyzed through P&Ls, balance sheets, etc., but also on the customer side, because at the end of the day, over 60% of overall impact that we as a planet as a whole create derives from activities of individuals, whether it's your customers, your employees, or your suppliers, but on the human level. So yeah, that's what we're trying to tackle at SWEN. We are working on building the tool that automatically funnels data from different sources, makes sense of it, and then makes it actionable, both on individual level, but as well on the corporate level.
Yeah, very interesting. And maybe taking a step back and looking at you more personally as well, what kind of originally motivated, or what were the drivers for you personally to go the route of being a founder and kind of taking a leap into entrepreneurship, as opposed to staying more on the corporate side for your career?
Sure. My family has been in business for the past 30 years. So I've always seen that as an example coming back home when I was small, when I was at school, when I was a student. And so for me, it was always obvious that this is the path I want to pursue. And with this in mind, I was pretty lucky to actually have studied in multiple countries, have studied in multiple institutions, getting my bachelor degree in the UK, in, I would say, probably one of the coolest programs you can get, which is Information Technology Management for Business, quite synergetic between business and IT, so that actually covers both flows and is supported by tech partnership, which is essentially 96 companies, including Amazon, IBM, etc., that just wanted to build a new cohort of employees at the end of the day for them, but quite a few people go into entrepreneurship. So I would say the motivation was coming both from the experience I was obtaining as well as the example that I was seeing.
Absolutely. It's interesting. I've had a few people that we've chatted with here who mentioned parents as well, or at least some kind of family member or family friend who's like an early role model in terms of being a bit more entrepreneurial savvy, and it's great to see so many folks like see that, admire that, and want to kind of take that same path.
That's actually a reason why, for example, for me, joining the accelerator was an interesting experience, because it's basically just jumping for a month into quite an intense, like-minded individual group. Because I mean, obviously, there are communities I'm part of all around the world, but this is not as intense because it doesn't give this feeling of somebody is running faster than you and you have to kind of run back.
Yeah, it's a little bit of gamification in the sense that everybody's competing to be the best within some kind of group of people, whereas maybe a community is a more like a general community is going to be more relaxed and a bit harder to even get a sense of where you stand. But in a tighter, more well-knit community, there's definitely be folks kind of edging to be the best of the best.
100%.
Yeah. And now for because you mentioned this earlier, and I wanted to circle back to it. For carbon footprint capture, for you, is it the mission piece that you really align with? Is it something around, general like sustainability interest? I guess what kind of got you interested in building in climate tech?
So I would lie if I say that it was just me trying to make world a better place, because I believe that this is actually not the approach that has to be taken in climate tech, and that's the reason why climate tech is pretty much broken, because there are a lot of people who are talented and they really want to help the world, but they forget that helping the world has to be sustainable, and sustainable not in the sense of sustainability, but sustainable in the sense of this has to be beneficial for business, and it has to be actually business at first and only then sustainability at second. So for me, it wasn't about just the sustainability part. It was a mission part to make business while doing it in the area that affects everyone's life on the daily basis. So I would say that first it was the opportunity which I saw, because I mean the barely few solutions existed for B2C segment and still exist, and it's quite a complicated task to actually tackle, and so I see more and more of them dying on the daily basis. But that's the challenge. It's an interesting one. There is a great opportunity, and I believe it's a huge market, because this will one day become a regulation or would just be something that we worldwide adopt. So it's a mix of opportunity as well as making a long-lasting impact while not forgetting that it has to be business.
Absolutely. And yeah, it can't be pure altruism, because those economics tend to not work. And so you have to find a mix between business model and kind of that altruism piece as well, and find something that marries the two or is a nice hybrid of the two.
And Europe is actually a great example, because with me saying that there are a lot of startups dying, there are quite a few companies that actually managed to do that. I would say quite successfully. One of them is, for example, Ecosia, quite a great example, like an alternative browser for Google or DuckDuckGo, etc., which just offsets instead of making money off advertisement. But they are quite open with all of their financials, and you can, in any annual report, see that they're still a business.
Yep. And so is the status quo, because I think there will be two pieces to this question here, one around consumer and then one around business, because your data tracking piece can work for both sides. I guess for the consumer side, what's kind of the status quo there today, and how about for business? Curious to hear more on both.
For consumer side, unfortunately or luckily, to date, there hasn't been a single player who managed to actually capture a sufficient amount of the market, but there are a few that actually proved the market, I would say. So one of them is the company called Klima, which has been already, it was initially venture-backed, and then it later got acquired by a larger private equity firm from the US. At their peak before acquisition, they've been running their mobile app with over 100K monthly paying subscribers, and they've been growing quite substantially, which is still nothing compared to 900 million population in Europe. But I mean, they definitely prove there is a request by people to do that. And I think it was a great deal for them, being acquired quite fast, because probably the valuation was quite good. But on the other side of the spectrum, where we talk about business, up to basically 2025, all the reporting was not obligatory for most of the companies, because at the end of the day it was voluntary. It was for the HR image for most of the companies, or you have to be in heavy industries like for example oil, where you do have to report. But this year CSRD comes into force 2026, and so with CSRD coming into force, it's already not just a bunch of companies, it's basically 12,000 companies this year, 60,000 companies in the upcoming years, and then it just grows and grows and grows until the moment where basically everybody will have to have a tool they use to report to the governments. This is, for me, this is a form of tax that we just have to admit. And unfortunately, for people who don't like taxes, it's not coming anywhere out. So like this is just a new reality, a new tax that we will all have to live with. So the status quo there is there were a lot of solutions for B2B that were not really focused on the accuracy of data, because they were doing it for the sake of doing the reporting part. This year, the accuracy of data with CSRD becomes vital, and the fines and penalties for basically misreporting are of the same magnitude as of misreporting your P&Ls. And so with this in mind, it becomes too expensive to work on inaccurate data.
Yep. And maybe I'm unfamiliar, but CSDR, is that regulation specifically for Europe, like EU, or is it a couple select countries? What does that look like?
CSRD is actually European-wide regulation,
Okay.
but there is an alternative one in the UK, because as we all know, UK is not part of the Europe anymore. The UK one is more focused on the financial side of things, while CSRD is a more well-rounded, so it covers not just the financial aspect, but also all of the little bits and pieces of travels of your employees, etc., like anything that is not necessarily monetarily has a monetary equivalent. Then there are a few of those actually in the Middle Eastern region, but Middle Eastern region is lacking in some of technological aspects of, for example, open banking, etc., which makes it much harder to actually collect the data. So I would say that CSRD is Europe-wide. Then there is the one in the UK. There is one in the Middle East. US is pushing back on it, as we all know, with the narrative of the current president. But I guess presidents come and go, and so with this in mind, one day or another, there will be another alternative coming from there as well.
Yeah. In a couple of years, we could have a total reversal in policy. Exactly. Once we hit 2028. It's interesting landscape in the US for that right now. Do you think in general, like Europe, because they tend to be more forward in terms of compliance or maybe like mindfulness on that side, do you think Europe needs to be kind of a leader in the climate space in terms of regulation and how it's affecting both consumers and businesses?
It actually already is, I would say, because back in the days, like a few years ago, there was definitely a downshift for all the climate tech, with US pushing back on overall this field. But after, I would say, a year and a half of the downshift, I can see that basically on the weekly basis, there is another 200 million being deployed into funds that invest in climate tech, etc., in Europe. So Europe kind of realized that, yes, there is a bigger economy on the side that was normally driving the interest to one area or another. But if this economy doesn't want to drive it, we want to do it ourselves, because just a different mentality, approach, and everything. So I would say that in the past year, Europe has taken the lead and has taken like quite a self-sustained lead. So they're no more focused on what the guys in the Middle East do or what the guys in the US do. So they just keep on funding themselves, and I would say there is a lot of capital being raised, deployed, and definitely Europe is on a good trend right now for that.
And for SWEN, is Europe the main focus for you right now, or some kind of split between Europe, UK, Middle East, or how are you kind of approaching that?
As we're, I would say, still in the product market fit situation, and we are, even over the course of the accelerator, our narrative changed quite a bit. So with this in mind, we are not really selective on the specific market, because we want to explore which market grasps traction the fastest. And I would say that we are definitely avoiding Middle East just for the purposes of not being able to supply the data. automatically, because manually is not something we want to approach, because when we believe that in order to break the barrier of people coming, both companies and individuals coming into climate tech, has to take the least of their time. And so with this in mind, we need to have all these tools to collect data effectively. And Europe is the leader in this, with all the open banking regulations, with EU wallets coming into force right now. So I would say that we are focused on UK and Europe. I would say we try to still, with me saying that we go wide, we focus on the markets where people seem to be a bit more knowledgeable about that. So it's definitely Nordics and DACH. And then it's the UK, because UK is still one of the biggest economies on this continent, if not the biggest.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, the Nordics tend to be pretty forward-looking on environmental regulation and mindfulness and climate as well. Maybe one last question here, and just to shift gears a little bit, because I'm always curious to get the founder perspective and experience on this. For you, in terms of the fundraising side of things, whether for this business or a previous one, what have you kind of found to be good strategies or tips that finding and landing potential investors, things that have worked well for you, or things that you found and you'd advise someone if they were a day one founder, don't do this at all because it's a waste of time. Curious if you have a view on either side for best tips or must avoids.
Okay, I would say that unless your business is just a massive cash generator, or you have like an incredible level of profitability, which is not always the case for most of the businesses, like we still tend to operate at under 100%, let's say, profit margins. But I would say that it's with this in mind, it really becomes it's not the best word, but nurturing game. So nurturing your relationships and investing in them, because when your business model is not something that can just print money from $1 another $100, clearly your business is investable because of you, because of the team, because of the market opportunity. But at the end of the day, like, it all starts with people talking to people. And with this in mind, unless you actually invest in the relationships you are building, invest in the image like that you have, both for the employee onboarding, both for the external market, etc., both for as well for investors, unless you invest into those things, I would say it's impossible to raise, because unless you are doing just a dividend yield business, or like you have a printing machine that just prints money, that's the most important part. But there are, I would say, a lot of tools right now to assist with the investment process. I would say that it doesn't have to be hard, and with everyone saying it's a full-time job, I wouldn't agree as much, because I would say that it's best that founders keep on building and take this not as a side hustle, but as something that has to complement what they're doing. Because, for example, building in public, while doing those, you're opening up the information about you building, and investors every now and then they see this, and so they start to get interest into you because you show personality, you show the progress and all these things. And so you nurture those relationships, and then gradually you build up the necessary for you base of the investors. Plus, it's good if you can qualify them based on actually matching you. So not all money is equal. There is no point of taking money from a fintech fund that would invest in that never invested in climate tech, even if you have a great relationship with this fund manager. So yeah, I would say it's about building strong, long-lasting relationships, because also, I mean, the life is long, and we can be in many sort of businesses at different points in times. And even if this business is not successful, or you didn't manage to raise, or you went another way, this relationship will stay with you for long.
Yeah. And I think that it's a great way to think about it. The time horizon is so long, because I think even for us, whenever we invest, we think about it as this is going to be like a 10-year partnership just for this existing business. And then to your point, like as a founder, you can even think about it as an even longer game with a potential investor where, they could be an investor in an next business, or, someone who's now spanning multiple decades of having some type of relationship with. And yeah, it's private investing is very illiquid. It's not like folks can turn around and sell shares of your company the next day. So you want, I think, on both sides, the founder and investor side, like you want to make sure that it's a good fit for the relationship and partnership. And the best way to do that is nurture it and spend time with the other side.
Agreed, 100%. Like that's definitely a double-sided game. It's never a one-way ticket.
Yep, exactly. And with that, we're at time. So I want to thank you, Max, for joining me on Bits and Atoms. It was great to have you today. Really appreciate you making the time.
It was a pleasure talking to you, and I hope it was helpful for people who will watch.
Absolutely. Have a great rest of the week.
Thank you so much.